Hi, my name is Victor Sweezy, and today I'm going to be presenting my Human Rights Report Card about the United Arab Emirates. As I'll get into later, I decided to give the United Arab Emirates a D+, which is a pretty harsh score on an A to F range, but I think some of the atrocities and human rights abuses going on in the Arab Emirates really justify that score. So first, to give a little bit of background about the UAE. So as you can see here, the UAE is a nation in the Middle East, uh, in the Persian Gulf. It's between Oman and Saudi Arabia, near the other Gulf states of Bahrain and Qatar, and it's considered to be one of the more powerful Gulf states next to Saudi Arabia. Um, it's composed of 7 emirates, which function as each function as their own monarchies. So together, the country is a federation of monarchies. Um, and some of the most famous emirates are Abu Dhabi, which is the capital, and Dubai, which is one of the wealthiest cities in the world. It contains the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. So they're pretty well known for that. Um, the Emirati economy is based largely around petroleum, as you can see in this picture. So the oil industry plays a really big part in the wealth of the United Arab Emirates. Their population is about 10 million people, but only about 10 to 15% of those people are actually native-born um, Emiratis, and most of the other ones are foreign nationals who are in the United Arab Emirates to do manual labor, which is something I'm going to get into a little bit later. So now that we've got a little background, let's move on to some of the human rights issues that are occurring in the United Arab Emirates. Now, one of the biggest human rights issues in the UAE is free speech. Uh, the UAE is not a democracy, it's a federation of monarchies. They have no mechanism for guaranteeing accountability in the government or for defending the free press. In fact, they don't have a free press. And there was a pretty high profile case, which I'm going to talk about a little later too in my news section, in which Ahmed Mansour, who was a celebrated human rights activist, poet, and online blogger, was actually sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he's been on a hunger strike in prison protesting his sentence. So free speech and free expression are definitely a big issue in the United Arab Emirates. Um, I would say the second most prominent human rights issue is their actions in Yemen. Now, for a long time, or almost 5 years, Yemen has been in the midst of a civil war being fought by the rebel Houthis against the government of Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi. Now, Hadi's government is pretty much supported by coalition uh, led by the Saudi Arabians, but also including the UAE and backed by the US. And this coalition has been known for perpetrating a lot of human rights abuses, including torturing prisoners of war, killing civilians, and basically cutting off resources to create this famine that's one of the most uh, prominent human rights disasters in the world right now. Another major issue, like I mentioned earlier, is working conditions for migrant workers. Migrant workers make up almost 90% of the UAE's population, and though they passed some legislation to protect them in 2017, there's still a lot of room for improvement, and it also does not protect domestic workers. Um, Women's rights, women are not given equal protection under the law in the UAE. Uh, Domestic abuse is legal. Marital rape is legal, and women are expected to be obedient to their husbands. In addition, LGBTQ rights are not enshrined in the law either, and indecency is pretty much is criminalized in the legal code and is used as an excuse to arrest and persecute LGBT people. Now, talk a little bit about the news stories. Um, what's been coming up a lot recently is the UAE's intervention in the war in Yemen, and they intervened in Libya, in Syria, in different conflicts over the last few years. And there's sort of a sense now that this coalition led by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, also backed by the US, is not in fact working to promote peace and democracy. These countries are not democracies, but that it's actually working to promote its own national interests in the Middle East. And at a cost of major civilian casualties, a lot of death, a lot of instability. So that's been a big uh, debate recently raging in the Middle East and including a lot of human rights issues. Lastly, I'll show a few pictures. Um, on the top right, that is a demonstration by foreign nationals who are domestic workers, saying workers not slaves and demanding protections and labor rights. And then on the bottom left, here is a picture of a girl who's suffering from the famine in Yemen due to the civil war in Yemen. So I hope you understand a little better now why I gave the United Arab Emirates a D plus, and thank you for listening to my screencast. Thank you.